All right, we got an extra fun one today. We have the Marlins top prospects here on the call-up. You got Aram and Jack McMullen to talk about it. Jack, it's basically part of your job now to stay up to date with what's going on in the Marlins farm system, but it's a lot nicer when there's a lot of fun talent to go just like meander through the backfields and go watch, whether it's high A, low A, triple A. And I think it makes it really exciting about, I think, the direction that the Marlins organization's heading into. And also, a lot of that top talent, man, is in AAA. So it's a lot of fun stuff to talk about, and very excited to walk through the backfields with you in a few months here to be able to watch a lot of these players again.
AAA national champs. Shout out the Jumbo Shrimp. This is, I think, inarguably one of, if not the most improved farm system over the last 24 months, right? Since Peter Bendix took over as the president of baseball operations, and you had that drastic overhaul of the player development and player identification process. It seems like the Marlins have steepened their trajectory more than any other organization in baseball when it comes to the farm system. And it's indicative. You're right. Like in the upper minors, I saw somebody tweet out yesterday, they feel like the Marlins may have the top two non-debuted pitching prospects in the game in White and Snelling. And then you also have guys like Kevin Defrank in the DSL and Luis Cova in the DSL. From top to bottom, there's intrigue there. And to your point about the backfields, I got into like this amazing cadence last year where it was a 1:00 first pitch at Roger Dean, so the main ballpark at the Marlins and Cardinals spring training complex. At like 10 a.m. after the big league media stuff was done, I would walk over and just see guys stretching and doing some infield work. It's like, wow, these guys are a lot bigger and stronger and faster than I was anticipating them being. And I feel like that's a credit to like the Marlins infrastructure as well as those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I know that's been a big focus, and that'll be a theme on some of the players we're talking about, I think, is you're seeing the Marlins now, bet on their ability to develop a little bit more on the position player side, where, you take a Cannarella and say, we feel good about our infrastructure to help this guy maybe tap into a little bit more power. You trade for a Caba. You say you feel good. We feel good about maybe our ability to get him, tapping into a little bit more impact. And they seem to love the defense, speed, contact guys, and then hoping that they can, get a little bit more out of those guys offensively. And I'm excited to see how that goes, over the next year plus with a lot of these players that they have brought in here on the position player side. Because I think if you talk about the pitching, it's fantastic. They've got some upper minors talent, position player wise, I think is really exciting as well. But I think the last or like the next piece for them is just that continuous stream. And they've talked about the layers of talent, like that stream of lower level hitters showing that they can make the leap level by level by level and progress the way that you want to see. Because I think just there's a little bit of a gap with some of the position player talent, but that's to be expected as they continue to, bolster up this farm system. And I think there's a lot of players who could take a step forward this coming season to fill those small gaps, when you look at some of the levels. But we might as well jump right into those guys as well.
Yeah, one more quick thing. I know something that they are prioritizing and they take a lot of pride in is the consistency of messaging level by level. So it almost feels like you're playing for the Marlins in Beloit and in Pensacola and in Jacksonville and in Jupiter and in the complex and in the DSL. Like it's the same exact messaging. The big league staff is aware of what the low A staff is pushing to their prospects instead of, oh, well, you're the low A pitching coach. You're going to have a different philosophy than the high A pitching coach, and you choose your favorite and you go work with them in the offseason.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that's what the best orgs do, and that was a problem I think with the Marlins, in the past, which and unfortunately, then you have this segmented, approach where a young hitting coach is also trying to make a name for himself, and so he's going to have his guys, and he's going to work and preach certain things that maybe work with his philosophy, and then that hitter gets to high A or double A or triple A, and now they have another coach maybe doing the different thing or, trying to make a name for himself. So it creates a really difficult dynamic for the players, and that's no longer much of an issue with the streamlined top to bottom. Let's go right into Josh White here, who is the first name to watch. We'll fly through these names to watch. White added to the 40-man. That was expected after the year that he had He'll be in the Marlins bullpen at some point this season. Maybe could break camp. It's just totally up to, I guess, what the Marlins do on the free agent market, what the active roster looks like. But White was fantastic this year. It's, a fastball that I don't think jumps off the page, but short arm delivery that just seems to work well enough. The pitch that is just outrageous for him is that curveball. And just to put this in perspective here, opponents were 6 for 97 against his curveball. That's a 0.62 batting average with 60 strikeouts. 41% chase rate, 28% swinging strike rate. That's one of the most dominant pitches in minor league baseball this past year. I don't really think there's any way around it. So he also mixes in a slider that it looks like it can be a solid pitch as well. And I think with a fastball that's 94, 95, I think that's enough for him to at least be a middle reliever. But I think you have hope that White can be a little bit more. And, I think for the Marlins, they're just excited about having more relief depth.
Yeah, fun 40-man ads. They added Zach Brixey on waivers from Washington, but White and William Kempner were the two that were added to the 40-man roster. And they're different looks, right? White is over the top with that curveball that's nasty, and then Kempner is like this whippy, almost sidearm guy that still gets up to about 95, and then it's a slider and a cutter off of that as well. But White is like that true north-south. He can beat guys north-south all the time, and that's what he did in AA and AAA this past year, sub-2 ERA.
Yeah, and again, I think maybe could break camp with a good spring training. It'll be fun to see. But that curveball, again, here's a slash line against it. 062, 115, 082. That's a 198 OPS.
Yeah.
So that's just crazy stuff. Next name to watch, Jared Serna. I felt like it would be too much of a overcorrection to just totally boot him out of the entire realm here after being excited about him when the Marlins acquired him in that Jazz Chisholm trade. Serna seemed like he put kind of everything together in 2024 as this 5'7" utility type infielder who was all of a sudden playing a really good shortstop compared to what he was doing before, and hitting the ball really hard for his size and pulling the ball in the air at a high clip. It was everything that you wanted to see from a player of that archetype. Then this past season, I don't really know what happened, to be honest. He just was struggling to hit the ball in the air at the same clip, and he was struggling to get the ball to the pull side very much. So to me, it seems like the mechanics got away from him, and he couldn't really figure out why or what was going on, and it just started to pile up on him. What I think is interesting is he's still just 23 years old. I think it says something that the Marlins, who don't have the most wide open 40-man, they have a lot of young prospects that they love. They have some guys, role players in the big league team that they're not just going to cut ties with. I mean, even like a Troy Johnson was a casualty who I don't think you're going out of your way to put up on waivers. He got claimed. But they're holding on to this Serna 40-man spot, I guess, for a reason, right? So, I think they see a super utility type that they're hoping for here, and he's been playing winter ball, playing a lot of center field. And so I think that's interesting. So playing some right, playing a lot of center, and, maybe it'll be a guy that can literally play every position on the diamond. And if the bat can come back along again, he's a good bench piece.
Also been really good in winter ball. 111 games between double and triple A this past year. In 111 games, he had 15 extra base hits. In 42 games in winter ball with Jalisco in Mexico, he has 24 extra base hits. So 15 in 111 games during the regular season and 24 in 42 games in winter ball. By the way, on the same team sharing a lineup with Billy Hamilton, hitting 263, slugging over 400. Billy Hamilton in 17 games only has 3 stolen bases. What happened to the Billy Hamilton that I once loved?
He's a power hitter now.
That's crazy. Good for him. He signed a minor league deal with somebody last year. Was it the Iowa Cubs?
The Cubs with like 3 weeks left in the season. They were, I guess, experimenting with the maybe he can be our pinch runner or Gerard Dyson.
Terrence Gore, Gerard Dyson deal.
He's not fast enough to do that anymore, I don't think, sadly. But I'm glad he's still playing ball. I love it.
Yeah.
Will Schomburg. This was a last minute addition. Actually, I'll be honest, I missed him. I just flat out missed him. And DYM in our Discord, who's one of my favorite folks, especially in, just on Marlins Twitter, just great guy. Brought him up. He's like, did you consider him? And I'm like, I probably should have. So I was watching a little bit more, and you dig into the numbers, and Schaumburg was awesome. I believe that he was acquired from the Mariners and some random deal. He's really funky, and he threw more strikes than ever this past year. A 3.2 ERA and 90 innings between high A and a little bit of double A. Cut his walk rate by 4% down to 10%, which is right on the fringe of where you want it to be. But his fastball also jumped a mile per hour as well. And it's from like a sidearm release almost. It's either extremely low 3/4 or high sidearm, whatever you want to call it, which is like an oxymoron. It's really funky. And then he has a changeup and sweeper that play up like crazy horizontally because he's throwing it like a wiffle ball from this low release. And the fact that he was able to throw more strikes now, I think makes him pretty intriguing. So you have this middle relief, I think, fallback because of the angles he creates and the way he works horizontally. And you know that's going to make life miserable for righties. But with that changeup as well, and now throwing more strikes, it could be this swingman type of arm for you. And I mean, the numbers don't lie this past year.
A shame that you forgot about the JT Chagua deal.
That's what it
It's
was.
unfortunate. Are you a real fan? But that's yeah, man. I've heard plenty of intriguing things about Will Schomburg too. You also look at what he did in the second half compared to the first half. First half 4.5, second half a 2.5 ERA and a 5.87 OPS against him from right-handed bats.
Yeah, that's a strong finish. And remember, like that's 3 AA starts mixed in there in the second half as well. So clearly something very much clicked for Schomburg. I think the Marlins are really hoping that something will click for PJ Morlando going into the 2026 season. Unfortunately for him, it's just he hasn't had a clear shot and runway to really settle in professionally, right? Because he's just had so many different little injuries here. And I wouldn't say little, like they're obviously pretty serious and have kept him out for some time. It was a back issue, like lumbar spine, if I'm not mistaken. And then he had an elbow issue with a nerve, like what do they call it when they got to remove the nerve or whatever to relieve the pressure?
Oh, is it displacement or
I
it
was like,
might be?
it's not disposition, but I forget what transposition. I
That
think it might
sounds
be
right.
nerve transposition. Um, Regardless, that's annoying in the elbow, the back, and he just hasn't had a lot of runway here. And I'll be honest, man, watching him in the Arizona Fall League, it just looks stiff. And I don't know if that's a guy that now is like, hitting ain't riding a bike, especially after you're dealing with injuries and you're trying to get settled into pro ball. I don't know if that's because was focused on his mechanics a little bit and trying to get things going and pressing, or if it was because he's not feeling fully, fluid and like he used to or normally does. Good news is he's still just 20 years old and he's got time on his side, but the Arizona Fall League stint, which was a challenge for him, mind you, right? Like this is a guy that has not played a lot of pro ball period and has not played above low A. But you're hoping that you get a better showing than 136, 261, 136. So not a single extra base hit from him as well. I think you just chalk up 2025 as a lost year. Hope he can wipe it clean, and I assume he's going to repeat low A, and you just hope that he can quickly hit his way out of there.
Yeah. Transposition or decompression. Those are the two measures to use. I think he had a transposition. Morlando, it's interesting. I feel like, and we had a good conversation with him on the call up when we were out in Arizona at the Arizona Fall League. So go back a couple weeks and listen to that if you're interested in that Morlando conversation. But yeah, I think the main goal for him in the Arizona Fall League, at least from afar, it seemed like it was just making it through and having a normal offseason. So this is his opportunity to have a normal offseason, show up to camp in February of 2026 and be rip roaring and ready to go. So here's to hoping he can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think with him, you don't even need like huge numbers. It's just kind of seeing a step in the right direction in this coming season, because there still is above average power potential here and from the left side. And it's a sweet swing when everything's moving in rhythm. So I think that's what the Marlins are hoping for here. Another guy that I think you're hoping to see another step in the right direction, or just a step in the right direction next year, is Noble Meyer. It's back-to-back first-round picks here for the Marlins. Or not back-to-back, but 2 first-round picks here for the Marlins. And Meyer's a tough situation to totally figure out as well, because the velocity has fluctuated to a degree in his professional career. And I just don't really. I've been struggling to figure out exactly what his identity is as a pitcher, and it feels like he's kind of battling that a little bit too. When he first came up, it was, I think, a unique angle, disgusting slider. It was all about the field to spin it, and you're like, okay, there's room for more velocity in that frame, right? And then the velocity hasn't come. The command has been a challenge, and there's just not a ton of swing and miss there. He still is able to get a decent amount of swing and miss in the zone on the fastball, but the slider, like the numbers against it are not great, which is like in his case good. I'm saying like a 171 opponent batting average. But when you look at the underlying, like there's not a ton of whiff, there's not a ton of chase, and you just wonder how that's going to play at the AA level. And he didn't even pitch his way into getting that opportunity last year.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily bad. Like when you look at the surface level numbers, it was fine. But when you watch him pitch, I know it just seems like this stuff's lacking a little teeth, and the command isn't there to offset it. Still 20 years old. He'll turn 20. He'll be 21 for the entirety of next season and still has all of this potential. But I think he's a difficult player to develop because you're still trying to figure out the best way to develop him, right? Like what's the best, most realistic path for him to be successful?
Yeah, it seems like the standard is also just pretty darn high for a guy that was the 10th overall pick, and understandably so. You want to hold that guy to a high standard. He's 20 years old, or at least he just finished up his age 20 season. Yeah, he's 20 years old until January 10th. So you're coming off of years where you threw 74 innings as a 19-year-old in full season ball at a 4 ERA. To your point, the surface level numbers are like not egregious. They're not awesome, but they're not terrible. And then this year, it was so hot and cold that at the end of it was a 4.41 ERA. If it was a 5.5, I feel like there's that concrete look in the mirror. Let's figure out what you are moving forward. But there's still enough on the bone. He's shown you enough to keep on trying the starting thing. The thing that jumps out to me is he's walking a lot of guys
Yeah.
over the course of his career. He made 5 starts in 23, but you look at all 150 innings he's thrown in the minor leagues. He's walked 100 guys in 150 innings. That's 6 walks per 9. It just can't happen as a starting pitcher.
No, it can. And I think that's where the fallback might be like, okay, he's a funky reliever and that might be the way to go. But what's interesting is, he has these stretches where you're like, oh, here he is, right? Like and I know they really carefully manage his workload. And so I wonder, that side of things as well. Like he had starts where he's sitting 94 and then he had starts where he's sitting 90. So that part is, we don't know, but he had a 4-start stretch where he in 17 innings struck out 23 and walked 4 this past year. And then after that has a stretch where he's just walking 4 and 5. And so it's really hard to figure out, but you hope that he can, find that stretch of and extrapolate that with more consistency. Victor Mesa Jr. He's a big leaguer. I do wonder if he may be trade bait because he really doesn't have anything left to prove in AAA, and the Marlins obviously are pretty crowded now in the outfield, especially with now a Kemp Alderman up in AAA and having some success at the end of the year. You have some other lefties already up at the big league level, so Mesa takes a 40-man spot. He has been solid at all 3 outfield spots. He's been banged up the back half of 2024 because he was playing really well in the first half in AAA in 2024 and then tried to play through a back issue and it really weighed down the numbers and then was hurt to start this past season and then ended up putting up good numbers in AAA and earning himself a big league cameo where he didn't look overmatched. Mesa Jr., I think, fits the bill of a 4th outfield type. Like he can play all 3 outfield spots. He's good in center and nothing jumps off the page, but I think he can give you close to average or average bat to ball, close to average power. And if you're doing that with the ability to play all 3 outfield spots, you're a big leaguer.
Yeah, he can get into it on occasion too. Like there were a couple of really hard hit batted balls at the end of the year that jumped out. And you're right, like he can handle, it seems like all 3 outfield spots, which is exciting. And big league caliber, the question is, to your point, how crowded is the outfield? Because you've got 3 lefty outfielders that you're looking at here in Stowers and Marcy and Conine. Is Mesa the 4th? Do you want a right-handed hitting outfielder? If he's going to play a corner, do you prefer Heriberto Hernandez? Like he is starting to become a puzzle piece, which is fun instead of, oh, we'll see if Mesa makes it.
I mean, there's some years in the past where Mesa's like the guy you have circled and saying, "Oh, he maybe he'll be the guy that gets this outfield going." And now it's like, how do we fit him in? So
Right.
I think welcomed conversation for the Marlins and Marlins fans here. Uh, Flying through the last few real quick. Williamar Martinez, $80,000 right-hander in 2022. Saw his stuff jump in 2025, and fastball jumped 2 miles per hour. That always helps. His curveball is his best pitch, 2-plane break, 79 to 82. Held opponents to a 150 batting average. He's going to find the third and fourth pitches there, like the slider lags behind the splitter is really in the early stages, but 3.3 ERA and 101 low A innings as a 19 to 20-year-old with a 28% strikeout rate. That's going to play.
I'm just a little real quick. I'm just a little surprised you had him outside the top 15. What held him outside the top 15?
Honestly, like I think just liking the other guys, I just
Sure.
the floor of some of these other guys. I thought about Eknis, who we're going to talk about in the top 15, but with Martinez, it was just trying to project that stuff at the higher levels was difficult. What was interesting though is the velo got stronger as the year progressed. But if you look at it's really interesting. If you look at the pitch usage breakdown, 90% of the pitches he threw were curveball, fastball, and the fastball strike rate was 72%, and then the strike rate on like everything else which is again mostly curveball, and then whatever else he sprinkled in was about 53%. So I think there's just a little bit of concern about like what else is there arsenal wise, but he's got a lot of time to figure that out.
Got you.
Matthew Etzel, acquired for Nick Fortes from the Rays. I think when they acquired him, Etzel was still hurt, but it was minor, and they knew that. He returned to action for the Marlins. 35 AAA games. He OPS 768 the rest of the way. Fits best in the corner, can plug into center, can really run. And I think a guy like Etzel is another reason why you probably could, move a Victor Mesa Jr. As much as I love Victor Mesa, I hate that I'm like shopping him. He's a great guy.
Right.
But just thinking about the roster, because Etzel, I think, elevated himself as well as somebody that looks like he could fit that role as kind of the up and down outfielder, or if he performs well enough, can hit his way into being that fourth or fifth outfielder.
Got you.
Menace on the bags as well when he's
Yep.
right. Josh Eknis, I think potential big league reliever this year for the Marlins. I mean, the stuff has just skyrocketed since he joined the Marlins organization in the 13th round in 2023. Reached AAA by the end of the 2025 season, 2.83 ERA and 102 appearances in his professional career. The fastball velocities fluctuated a bit. In 2024, I think he was averaging a little bit harder. 2025, he was averaging 98 some outings, and then some other outings he was closer to 95. So I think that's something to monitor. But it's a low release that helps the fastball play up in the zone. His sweeper has been gross, and I just think another guy that good chance of being a middle reliever, and they've used him in some multi-inning roles as well, and just good depth to have, and still has the upside if he can hold those 98s more to be a seventh inning guy.
Listed at 6'4", 225. He looks taller and longer than that. Like he is, to me, it's almost like Puck from the right side. Not crazy like Puck where it's just arms flying at you and you feel like he's releasing the ball Glasnow level 30 feet away from you, but sort of similar sensation.
Eliezer Dishmay, similar to the Martinez conversation, same IFA class. Big step forward in his age 20 season, 2.90 ERA and 99 and thirds innings. He added a splitter that really, I think, elevated him this past year, and had a higher strike rate than the changeup he was throwing before. Nothing jumps off the page, but 93 to 95 with a slider and splitter that can be average can make him a back end arm. Davison De Los Santos, man. I mean, look, it's still too early to say like it's do or die, but it feels like if he doesn't, bounce back a little bit next year, he may kind of slip into the I don't want to say prospects of obscurity because he'll still be 22 years old until June, but you start to doubt even further whether he's going to be able to curtail the chase and elevate the ball enough to be a big league bat consistently. The thing is it's 70 raw power. It's enough bat to ball. It's just, can you hit it in the air and can you not chase as much? And he cut the chase rate down, but I felt like that almost made him worse plate discipline wise this past year, which is concerning to me, because that tells me like he may just be a guy that only knows how to perform in swing mode, and you may just have to ride the roller coaster, rather than trying to shore up his approach.
I would just be curious to know like how frustrating the 25 year was for him because he probably felt like he was knocking on the door of the big leagues during spring training. And
Yeah.
then when you're sent to minor league camp, okay, how quickly am I going to get up? And that it doesn't happen. When does it happen in 26? Does it happen in 26? I don't know. There's like a lot to think about, I feel like, with Davison.
No doubt. No doubt. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how he bounces back this year if he does. Connor Benitez, fastball was up a tick and a half in 2025. That's the theme through this Marlins system this past year. And there were positive results to follow that until he got hurt around the halfway mark. But his bread and butter is a changeup. That could be a plus pitch as a lefty with, I think a little bit of deception to the release, some decent extension. He still needs to find how to, spin a breaking ball a little bit more consistently, but I think the sinker changeup combination from the low, like extended release is really tough for lefties and crowds them in a lot, but also can be good for righties. So I see a potential back end of the rotation arm here. And then last but not least, Nigel Belgrave. I know probably a name that you've heard a little bit just talking to Marlins people. I know they're excited about him. 6'5", 210, got up to AAA at the end of the year. He throws his slider more than anyone in the org. I think it's like 60% usage, but it's gross. And I think that slider alone, he can be one of those guys that just goes 60% slider out of the pen, but can be a weapon for him. And I think the fastball is good enough because he has the cutter to bridge. And I think Belgrave will be a middle rotation arm middle relief arm for the Marlins sometime this year.
That 23 draft, man, that looks really sharp at the end with the relievers like Eknis and Nigel Belgrave. Worcester, Mass, stand up.
Love it. I love it. We're going to get into the top 15 in a moment here, which starts with Maximo Acosta. But before that, our first break.
I would also, before we get to Maximo Acosta, like to take this moment to tell you about our new friends at Visual Edge. They are an elite online sports vision training system used by Major League Baseball, minor league baseball players, college baseball, and youth baseball players around the world. They help athletes train the visual side of performance, something players like never train but rely on every single pitch. Feels like if you rely on it every pitch, you should probably train it.
Yeah.
Visual Edge has more than 20 years of experience working with major league clubs to identify talent in the draft. Visual Edge tests virtually every hitter each year in the draft. Start with the Edge test. It's a 15-minute online assessment measuring the 6 core visual processing skills that directly correlate with pitch recognition, timing, reaction speeds, plate discipline, clean decisions, and overall consistency at the plate. When these skills are weak, players obviously can struggle. Training is customized to each user based on their assessment score. 15-minute sessions, again, a couple of times per week, all online on your own laptop or iPad. Guys who use Visual Edge, big league stars, Aaron Judge, Ke'Bryan Hayes, Tommy Edman, Nico Horner, D1 programs, top high schools, travel programs, and they're partnered with Prep Baseball as well. Judge started with Visual Edge in 2020, stuck with it for the last 5 years. How many MVPs does he have there? I think it's 3 at this point. Now, Hayes, Edman, Horner all won gold gloves during their use of Visual Edge. Program is for anyone looking to improve their baseball performance, even as young as 7 years old. Think of Visual Edge as weight training for your eyes and brain. Before players go out and hit BP, they should be training their eyes just like you stretch before you lift. Hitters have less than 400 milliseconds to react to a pitch. Hitters know that their eyes are important, but very few are taking action to start training one of the most important skills in their game, their vision. So if you want to hit better, recognize pitches faster, and make more confident decisions at the plate, Visual Edge is the place to start. I know this is a Black Friday sale, but it runs a lot longer than Black Friday. It's around through the new year. It's the biggest sale of the year. 55% off all plans and subscriptions with code JUSTBASEBALL. All caps, one word. It's a great way to try the product if you're unsure about it. It's a phenomenal holiday gift. Can't go outside, shag fly balls, or scrimmage in the dead of winter? It's the perfect time to get on board and try it out before you head into the cage for your winter workouts. There's no extra hardware, no gimmicks, just real results proven to help your performance at the plate and on the field. Head to visualedge.com, visual with a Z, edge.com/sign up to get started today. And again, use code JUSTBASEBALL.
You know how I feel about the plate discipline. So,
oh yeah, it's a whole grade on your damn top 100.
And it's true though. I mean, like there's 2 components, right? You got to have the approach to say, okay, if I recognize the ball starting here, or this is the guy's pitch shapes, then, I'm going to leave anything that starts here or zero in there. But you can't do that until you can recognize where these pitches are starting and the spin and all those different things. And I think at high school and college, it can make a huge difference as well, let alone the professional ranks.
Yeah.
Number 15, Maximo Acosta. Disappointing year for him as well, relatively speaking, because he was a breakout pick for me. What he had done in the second half of 2024, and then in the Arizona Fall League, which made him, a target for the Marlins in that Jake Burger trade. I mean, the quality of contact was fantastic. The defense looked the part at shortstop, and basically made a mechanical adjustment that had him breaking through across the board. He didn't quite follow it last year, but even so, with the disappointing season, gets up to the big leagues, shows flashes. He's another player that I think is going to outslug the exit velocities a little bit with the ability to pull the ball in the air. So that's always going to help hedge some of the offensive limitations. But when I look at Acosta, I see above average runner who can play a pretty good shortstop, move all over the infield, and you hope he can build on that really strong 2024 second half, and put the 2025. I don't want to say struggles, like it could have been worse, but the stagnant 2025 behind him, still going to be 23 years old for the entirety of the season. That's a great chance to at least be a bench piece.
The good news is he's twitchy as all get out. Like we saw that in his brief big league sample. This guy can hit the crap out of the ball. What was it? First four big league hits were homers. I think it was three. His first three major league hits were homers. And he's a guy that is violent at the plate, which is fun to watch. And he's also got a hose for an arm. He can get to a lot of baseballs too. He had this unique opportunity with a couple of nagging injuries for a lot of the regulars on the infield to not only play short at the big league level, but play second and play third. And he looked okay at all three of them. So you feel good about how that guy can progress defensively and also the twitchiness and the explosion that he has at the plate.
And 23 years old for the whole season. You hope that it can shore things up a little bit more, but it's still a pretty well-rounded skill set when you mention the tools and just the different aspects of his game where there's not really a clear-cut deficiency, which I think is good for, at least a player that you're hoping can fill a bench role. 14 is probably the hardest player for me to figure out right now, because when you look at the future tool grades, like that's probably a guy that should be way higher than 14. I agree. Honestly, the more I think about it, I could push him up higher. We had talked about this with some Marlins fans actually, but Dillon Head, it's hard when you have a pretty good farm system and it's a guy that has been hurt and just didn't perform at low A. So it's difficult. He came over in that Arias trade. He was the headliner, no pun intended. And it's a high floor because of the speed and defense in center field. But I've seen so many different setups and swings from him as he just kind of searches for it. And in watching the open side video from Head this past year, he had that hip surgery. And it just seemed like he was struggling to get into his base and stay there. And I imagine it's got to be really hard to do that after having a hip procedure done. And it seemed like he wasn't trusting it. And as a result, kind of pushing out of his backside. And a lot of times when you feel like your body's pushing forward, the mind says, okay, well, what are some other things that I can do to keep myself back? A lot of times then you'll wrap, right? You'll wrap the bat to try to just kind of keep yourself feeling like you're back. That compounds the issue, because then that creates your body moving forward, the bat getting stuck further behind you, and not much behind the bat to get it on plane and get it out of there. So that's where I saw him just giving up some pop. I think having the barrel lagging, and it was affecting his ability to just really hit the ball consistently at the angles that he wanted to hit it at. It could have been worse, I think, statistically, but it should be a lot better with his skill set. So I'm hoping he takes a leap forward next year. He has all the tools to do so. The contact rates were still good, and he's flashed decent EVs, but he's got to clean the swing up in a lot of ways. And I hope he can do that. But I'm a little concerned that if he doesn't, like, high A is going to be a challenge.
Thing about Head is he passes the eye test with flying colors. Like this guy, he looked the part even coming out of high school when the Padres took him in the first round. But after a full off season with the Marlins and showing up in 25, I was like, dude, you got big, big, big. And you're just waiting for that strength that he has to translate into baseball strength. And to your point, the hip might have mitigated that, and it wasn't able to happen for him in 25. If he can push that into baseball strength in 26, this guy could catapult from like 14 to 5 on this
Yeah.
list. I
Oh,
feel
no
pretty
doubt.
confident about that.
No doubt. He's basically, it's like he feels like a placeholder ranking, and it's mechanical at that point, right? Because physically, there's not really any question about it. So it's just okay. How can I get my mechanics to the point where I can actually tap into the twitch and the strength that I have? What's funny is I was looking at his swing when he first entered pro ball and that first taste after the draft with the Padres. I think that was the best swing he's had in pro ball. Uh, and sometimes you start to drift away from who you are when you have these different variables thrown at you, and you're trying to chase different improvements and things, and you don't realize how far you got from your baseline. And I think Head, especially with I'm just looking at the bat angles and things like that, and where he gets like just before he starts his swing, it's night and day. He had it a lot more simple for himself in San Diego, and I think it just with the injury, with the trade, trying to perform. I think there was a lot of different things that got him away from himself, and I'd like to see him just kind of simplify it a little bit more and get back to who he was, because sometimes it just seems like he's trying to do a little bit too much, and then the mechanics just seem to unravel as the year progressed. But he's got a lot of time. 21 years old for the entirety of the season, and still one of my favorite players to watch, in this system when he's going right. So 14 feels weird. I didn't really know what to do after the year that he had, but it's more of a testament to these other guys because a couple of guys that we're going to mention now I really like.
Yep.
Luis Cova, difficult player to assess, outfielder, second year in the DSL, right? Because first year in the DSL wasn't very good for his standards. He was a $1.4 million international free agent in 2024, but I think you saw everything that you wanted to see in 2025. He was one of the better hitters at the DSL level. He's a plus runner. He looks like he can blend, decent hit and potential power. And he has a good feel for the strike zone. Defense will be interesting. Like if he can progress and potentially play, good center field, obviously that helps the profile a lot. But for Cova, it was just a guy that added strength, improved his swing, and was much more productive, but it's also the DSL. And I'm always going to say that it's the DSL. So, it's hard to take too much, especially when you repeat the DSL, but in controlling what he could control, he did everything that you wanted to see.
Yeah. The thing that jumped out is his K total nearly doubled. What went into that? Because obviously, like the slug is better, the walks remain pretty much the same, and the Ks skyrocketed. Was he just trying to get into his A swing more and more and more?
You're saying the sorry, you said the power or the home run total?
The home run total tripled. It went from 3 to 9, but the K total went from 23 in
Oh,
55 games in 24 to 40 in 50
yeah.
games in 25. It's not like it's egregious at all. Don't get it twisted, but like it went from non-existent to, oh, he's punching out a bit.
It's a great point. And I was thinking about that, and I don't know. Like I think it really did. That my best guess would be exactly what you said.
Yeah.
Just getting it off. Because I think he was probably there and saying, like, I'm mashing, and like I want to be the best player out here, and just getting that swing off as consistently as possible. The thing too is I think there was a clear path adjustment for him where he was putting the ball on the ground way too much in 2024, and then elevated the ball a lot more in 2025. So in 2024, 51% ground ball rate, 2025, 32% ground ball rate. So I think in that process, maybe there's some times of pitches in the upper half of the zone that he's used to covering, and now he's swinging under them a little bit. And you just adjust to that approach wise, swing wise, and you get more comfortable there. But I'd imagine in the process of maybe finding more loft and getting that A swing off more consistently, it maybe results in a little bit more miss, because he's just not used to having that path. But ultimately, he still kept it in check enough. But it is a good point, and it'll be something to monitor, going into full season ball.
Got you.
Fenwick Trimble. I love Fenwick Trimble, man. The Marlins love him. 4th round pick, 2024. And I know you say, oh, you love him, but he's a 12th ranked prospect and he's 40 plus future value. It's just, he's such a sound, solid player. I just feel great about him being a big leaguer. Nothing jumps off the page. That's why he was a 4th round pick out of James Madison. But it's a really solid sum of the parts. I was hoping the defensive video would be a little bit better. If he looked a little bit better defensively, I think he's probably nestling his way closer to the top 10. I think ultimately it's probably just an average corner. And he can plug in center in a pinch because of his speed. He's above average runner, but it's probably average bat to ball plus plate discipline, which is a huge asset for him. And I think the power will be fringy. It's tough to figure out because it's above average raw power, but the path is very flat and he just hits hard liners everywhere. And then he's a good base runner, really efficient base stealer. And he's going to play, an average corner and potentially plug into center when you need it.
I'm trying to remember if we had Fenwick Trimble in one of these Arizona Fall League conversations. I think we did, right? Morlando was in there. No, we didn't have the Fenwick
I
Trimble
don't
one in
think
there.
so.
No, I guess that's the cross pollination right there. That's it biting me in the rear end because that made the Marlins radio network, but it didn't make the call up. But Fenwick Trimble, another really good conversation. Has to be fired up that his James Madison Dukes are playing for a spot in the college football playoff over the Miami Hurricanes. I know you're amped about that.
Yeah, that's definitely the best foot forward for college football.
So beyond that, you're right. Like he's just such a well-rounded player. And it's funny how many people we've talked to that are like, hey, keep an eye on Fenwick Trimble. The first time that we had that on the record was when we had Frankie Polari on right before the draft, kind of what goes into his draft process. And he said, highlighting guys like Fenwick Trimble to take in the mid to later rounds of the draft is where teams can really eat. And this is a top 15 prospect coming from the middle rounds of the draft last year, which is really cool.
Yeah, and there might be a little bit more power in there that could push his outlook to potentially an average regular if he can find a little bit more loft. To EV90 of 105 miles per hour. If you include the Arizona Fall League, 45% hard hit rate, and with the big league balls that they were using out there, the AAA balls that they were using out there, exit velocities, were up. A small sample, but he was hitting the ball really hard in the AFL. So Trimble looks like he could potentially be that second division regular. I think there's a high probability of that, but he could be more than that as he maybe finds a little bit more loft in that swing. And he's got a bit of a forward move, but it's a tight turn that he's still able to have with the swing. And he really, I think, is able to keep his hands in really well and is malleable with his swing, which helps. But if he can find a way to create a little bit more loft, I think you got a fun player here.
Yeah.
It's just kind of a funny stretch because Trimble, I think, is easier player to assess there. And then like the three of the last four are like impossible. And there's no more impossible prospect to assess than a Salas, right? Like it's how it goes, man. And that's the way that I guess it's mandated by their father. But it's just, you have these players put in positions where it's impressive that they are surviving no matter what. But at the same time, it's like, okay, well, at what point do we need to see results? Salas is nowhere near that point. Andrew Salas is nowhere near that point.
Starting to get there, but not Andrew yet.
Ethan's there. We got to see it this year, right?
Right.
But at the same time, it's like, okay, what numbers did you need to see from Andrew Salas at 16 years old and full season ball to be impressed? Like, I don't know. I was impressed by the fact that he played every position on the field. The priority in talking to the Marlins was just like, I was like, he played everywhere. What do you see here? And it was more of, we see him in a lot of different spots, but the priority was just keeping him in the lineup. We have all these infielders, we have all these different players, and we just want Andrew hitting and playing ball. And so that's why he moved all over the infield. And I think it was also all over the field, period.
Yeah.
Also, the funny thing is just a specific compliment that I got from the Marlins was most accurate thrower they've ever seen potentially, which is a great quality to have, right? Like, especially when you don't necessarily know if that's going to be from shortstop, from center, from third. If you know he's throwing, just BBs, great, right? So I think from that perspective, this guy played, he was 17 years old, like during spring training, played all over the diamond and didn't get his doors blown off. Is impressive, right? Like 24% strikeout rate as a switch hitter. As a 17-year-old in low A is great, but what do I take from this? I don't know, because he did look like a 17-year-old out there, just a really mature one.
I think you just take throwing accuracy from it. You
Yeah.
know, that among other things, throwing inaccuracy is what got Christopher Morel non-tendered a month ago. So, that's something that you're really fired up about. And that's something that honestly the Marlins have prioritized this year. Like you see, even at the big league level, also in the minor league ranks, them work on throwing accuracy and getting the ball out on time. And they have live timers right next to the first base bag 4 hours before first pitch. And they also have almost like a 9 pocket setup or those quarterback, throwing pockets that you have. Hey, hit this pocket. So it's something that they're assessing. I feel like you just take that this guy wasn't, wasn't unplayable at the full season level this young. Like, there's a lot of positive to take from this guy holding his own. It's almost like being serviceable as a true freshman. Like, say you've got a true freshman offensive lineman right now, you're looking at that saying, "Oh, what could be next
Yeah.
year? What could be in 2 years?" He's probably gonna get lit up by the fifth-year senior that might go second round. That's okay, like, just make sure you're good by the time you're draft eligible, and I feel like that is kind of the Andrew Salas conversation.
Yeah, and I think he faded a little bit too because there's no way he's played this many games and like just gone through that grind in the Florida Heat. He was pretty good out of the gate, and I mean the first 30 games, I know it was very walk dependent, but he had a 734 OPS. He had 15% chase rate. The approach is advanced. The angles are good. It's just he looks like a kid swinging a heavy bat. So like I know they're going to get him stronger. I know that's a focus, and it'll be fun to see if that step forward comes this year as he potentially adds some strength.
Yeah.
Number 10, another guy I know the Marlins are very excited about, Brandon Compton, who they just took in the Comp A round, 46th overall in 2025. Compton, I understand the excitement. I think there might be even a little bit too much buzz because he's got to really hit. And that's my thing with him is like he's got to really hit. He's got a chance to really hit in his pro debut. Like he popped a 115 already, but it's going to be fine defense in a corner at best. It's flatter angles, so he's still not fully tapping into that potentially 70 grade raw power just yet. And there's some swing and miss. So there's some factors working against him, but it's kind of the Kemp Alderman thing where it's just like if it does come together, he could be a monster. And with Kemp, it looks like it's heading in that direction. And he had a fantastic year, and now he's a fringe top 100 guy. So I think when you in a world where you just saw Kemp Alderman take that step forward, and then you add another Kemp Alderman type from the left side, it's understandable that the Marlins and Marlins fans are excited about what Compton could be.
What safety do you take in Brandon Compton? Is there anything safe about his game, or is it, volatile? Hey, it's bat reliant. I mean, this guy still went in the first however many picks. What it was, you mentioned Comp A or
I
second
think it was
round.
46th overall.
46. So that's a top 50 pick that's coming off an 865 OPS in the Big 12.
Yeah.
Typically, an 865 OPS doesn't go that high. Where's the safety there?
The safety, quote unquote, would be the fact that he punishes the baseball. And so you just hope that widens his margin. Right? A guy like Matt Wallner there's nothing safe about Matt Wallner, but he hits the ball so freaking hard that when he does make contact, the BABIP is so high that he's productive. So I think it's the safety is that you have this unteachable EV90 of 108, and you just say, he doesn't even need to be good at any of these things. He just needs to be serviceable. If it's a 40 hit tool and it's 50 plate discipline and he's elevating the ball a little bit more, he's a big leaguer one way or another because he hits the ball so damn hard. Might be a frustrating one, but he's a big leaguer. And I think that's the big thing with him. And then I think the Marlins feel like Compton's a sneaky athlete too, like more than he maybe gets credit for. And potentially there's more to maybe unlock there from the defensive ability and things like that, because he can move a little bit when he's underway. So I think the only safety is that you have this unteachable, and also that height and weight's not even close. I need to fix that. He's 230. You have this unteachable bat speed and power. And it's just can the more teachable things get tapped into here.
Yeah.
Then you have the complete opposite. Imagine if you could combine these two players. Cannarella, who was a few picks before that, elite defender, which that's what you take the safety in with Cannarella.
Yeah.
Another guy that I just think needs to repattern his swing a little bit. It's like two separate moves. And I think that the upper body and the lower body kind of getting out of sync. affects the power because you lose that tension and you lose I think like the togetherness of the swing because if the lower half goes and then the upper body goes, you don't create any force or I say again tension is the best like the hip shoulder separation. For him, it's like two separate moves. It's like a big leg kick, and then as he's going down, then he pulls his hands back, and it can I think create two separate parts that don't work together to utilize his base effectively to tap into more power. And I think that's why we've seen the power plateau with Cannarella. And also it affects his ability to turn around velocity because similar to the Dillon Head conversation, I think it causes the bat to kind of get lost behind you when you're pulling it back while your body's already going forward. That said, he has a pretty good feel for the barrel. It's great plate discipline. He's a plus runner and he's an elite center fielder. So even if the bat stalls, you've got a fourth outfielder most likely. And I think the Marlins are hoping that and optimistic that it won't stall, especially after the pro debut he had. There's clearly room for more strength and clear mechanical adjustments that can help him tap into more juice.
That's the beauty of the draft, where you can take these guys back to back and you can almost combine them and say, well, we have the floor of Cannarella and the ceiling of Compton in tandem because they went, 5-10 picks apart from each other. You mentioned that first pro sample, 22 games hit 284 and got on base at a 337 clip. He really didn't punch out either. K rate was under 20%. So yeah, listen, there's enough here. The thing that jumped out to me, 24 bags as a freshman, and then since then 7 bags in like 120 games between his sophomore, his junior year, and his 22 games in pro ball. So I'm just wondering where that aspect went for Cannarella.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what it could look like if he really buys in to the Marlins, weight program and all
Yeah.
of those different things because I think we were hoping in this past year that he would tap into a little bit more, and I think that's where people were thinking, oh, like he could be an early draft pick potentially. And he didn't go too far down there. Like he still was a pretty early pick, but I think he had some buzz to go really early. And what's interesting is Cannarella was actually making more contact in 2024. So I don't know if there was like an effort to try to tap into more power and that affected the contact rates some, but I think finding that middle ground and then just adding some strength and cleaning up the mechanics, it's going to be fun to see what he could be. But the defense is so special out there that I think that really solidifies his floor and gives him a chance to have a pretty fun ceiling because even if it's a 700 OPS, that's an everyday big leaguer easily.
Yeah.
Number 8, Kevin Defrank. Project for sure, but man, is it a fun template when a guy's 6'5", 240, and at 16 years old, by the way, he turned 17 in August, and throws absolute fuel. Fastball average 97.5. He's got a slider that looks like it could be a plus pitch as he just learns to repeat his delivery more consistently, and then he's mixed in a splitter a little bit. Defrank is part of that, I think, exciting group of DSL arms that the Marlins are really proud of with the investment into what they're doing down there with their academy. And with him, like it was like watching a man among boys pitch, and he was overpowering these hitters. But there's a lot of variance to his release, so a lot of times sometimes he's throwing fastballs that are dead zone, and then other times he's throwing fastballs that get a ton of horizontal, and it's totally unintentional. So just learning how to work behind the baseball or work on top of it, and maybe separate the two fastballs. Just learning how to repeat his delivery more consistently. Like those things will all come. But it's not easy to teach a 16-year-old to throw 97.5 miles per hour and touch 100, and that's what Defrank did last year.
Yeah. No, not easy whatsoever. And you feel like as this guy continues to grow, this could be that fireballer that has the, I guess, floor of being a setup guy because he can throw 100 miles an hour and he's 6'5" at 16 years old. But holy crap, dude. Would you say it's tough with Thomas White being present? Outside of Thomas White, would you say this guy has the second highest ceiling among the pitching prospects?
It's so hard because I think Snelling's ceiling is like underrated.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, if you're looking at this this kid and just saying, well,
Because
what could
it's
it be if it
so
all came
early
together?
for him, and you have already seen 100.
Yeah, he could be in a year or two, he could be sitting 100. So like, and it
Yep.
wouldn't really be that crazy. So yeah, I would say so. I would say so because I can't really think about the last time we've seen a 16-year-old pitching prospect this powerful.
Yeah.
It was just hard to rank him higher because he's just purely a thrower right now. But like, obviously, he's a thrower. He's 16 and he throws gas. But I'm excited to see as he just becomes more of a pitcher what the shapes are going to look like. And I think we'll get a chance to see that stateside this year when he throws in the complex, and then he may be a guy that gets a chance at low A sooner rather than later. And I think just being able to work out of the complex and work out, at spring training with the big league team or just being involved there, it's going to be fun to see, how they can maybe clean some things up with him because a little could go a long way when you got an arm like Defrank's.
Yeah.
Number 7, Karson Milbrandt. We talked a lot about him during our AFL time. He looks great. He had a great AFL. It was a huge step forward for him in this 2025 season. It's a plus heater. It's a plus slider. And that's why I feel like the floor is now really high for him because he's also gotten to the command to a point where it's 40 grade and you could see potentially 45 grade. Those two pitches alone, I'm going to make him a big league reliever. But then he's got an average curveball, and then he's even added a sweeper, kind of a change of pace pitch that'll mix in there. It's all about the command for him to potentially reach his number 4 starter ceiling there. But when you've got deception built in, like the fastball just seems to dominate within the zone more than the shapes would imply, and then you've got that slider that just performed as well as it did. He's still just 21 years old, by the way, too. He's been around for a little bit as a 3rd-round pick in 2022, and just seemed to get better as the year progressed. I love that 88-mile-an-hour slider that he's got, and it's funny. It's a really random comp, but I was thinking about, and I think I put it in the write-up. I feel like Milbrandt, the uncertainty is going to be almost a unique asset to where he's going to pitch his way up to the big leagues, and you're still going to be wondering what the role is going to be because it's going to depend on how many strikes he throws in the big leagues.
Yeah.
And I see like the AJ Bluebaugh type of situation there, which it's like we'll go out there and we're prepared for him to just kind of open for us. But if he's throwing strikes, we'll just ride him for 4+ innings. And like that's what Bluebaugh did in the big leagues with the Astros. And he was fantastic. But there was also instances where it said they were like, we only need you for 1 in the 7th. And he was sitting 97, 98 then because it was 1 inning and he looked more like a leverage arm. So like I could see that type of role for a Milbrandt, which is, I think, a new norm. And I think a lot of staffs want to have. And I think with the Marlins, they were very creative with the way that they went about their staff this past year. And I could see Milbrandt being a guy that they utilize in a creative way like that with his skill set.
It's cool, and that's becoming more and more present to your point. It's not just Bluebaugh in Houston. To a much higher scale, it's Mizorowski in Milwaukee, right? Where
Yeah.
they were prepped to let Mizorowski go 5 or 6 innings, but sometimes he was ready to go 2 or 3, and then you just hand it off and it becomes a piggyback type deal with Chad Patrick. There are a lot of good teams at the major league level that go in with a scheduled starter, and they're probably thinking 3 innings from this guy, 3 innings from this guy, and then 3 from our bullpen, and we're good. That covers our 9. That would be a really cool role for him. And I feel like that could be a role that he could capture pretty darn quickly. Obviously, it was only 2 starts in Double-A, but they went really well. 10 2/3 a 2-run ball. He K'd 10. And then he was striking out the world in the AFL. He K'd 23 in 13 innings. So if he has a good start to the year in Pensacola, why can't he just join Jacksonville's rotation, be in finishing school by May, and then be ready to go for whatever role the Marlins may need come September?
Yeah. Yep. I love it. I love it. And I think short term makes a lot of sense. And then the floor is kind of his, right? Okay.
Yep.
You're throwing a ton of strikes. All right. Well, now we'll give you, a longer leash out there. And if he's locating the curveball, and the reason why I like him as a guy that could potentially start is because that curveball is a different shape to be able to go get lefties. But the slider is so hard at 88 that I think it's going to be good against hitters of both handedness. And even without a changeup, I think he's got the shapes in the pitch mix to be able to keep lefties and righties at bay. And I think the numbers would back that up because both were not very productive against him. It's a fun kind of unique range of outcomes that he doesn't even have to land on one outcome. You can kind of maneuver him around those. And then he could at 23, 24 years old, finally have things click and you stick him in the rotation. And that is, as you mentioned, kind of the new norm because guys throw strikes all of a sudden sometimes when you never know, like you never expect it. And all of a sudden guys throwing strikes. I never realized how hard it is to predict that. Like I thought maybe, just something that we don't know too much on the outside. The more I talk to people with teams and they're just like, yeah, he just started throwing strikes. That happens sometimes. It's just like, okay, all right. Like they know it's out of their control sometimes too. Guys just start throwing more strikes sometimes.
And at the end of the day, they are in the leading horses to water business. They're not in the making horses drink business. And like, it's on these guys to do it. They can give them every possible resource to throw more strikes, to up your fastball velocity, but it's on them to stick to the throwing program, stick to the weight training, stick to the mindset that you're taught in the bullpen. Like these guys, it's nice when things click because so much of the onus is on them. And it seems like Milbrandt is a really good worker. Quick interaction with him out in Arizona. I was really impressed by just him and like the overall presence and the makeup too. This organization is, and I'm not just saying it because I'm employed by them. This organization is loaded with good guys.
And I know that's been more of a focus as well. Number 6 is an intense guy, Kemp Alderman. Alderman, crazy juice. We're talking 80 raw power. It's some of the best raw power in professional baseball, period. And that's why I felt he is another really difficult player to assess because you have 80 grade raw, which almost should be a prerequisite to just being on the top 100 list if you're not egregiously whiffing. But I'm just still skeptical that he's going to be able to fully get into that. Like it's a really flat path and a very deep contact point. And those two things generally result in some struggles. I start to think of like a Reese Hines and some of those guys when you get to the big league level, because when that contact point is deep, they'll start to blow you up inside and it's hard to speed you up and then spin away. The approach, he was aggressive. He's less aggressive. He cut his chase rate by about 5%. He's okay in a corner. There's just a lot of pressure to hit. Like it's 40 grade hit and then 80 raw power. So there's this pressure to get to the game power. I think he can. We started to see him do it a little bit more once he got up to AAA. But also something that I think is important to note, the AAA competition, especially in the back half of the year, was really bad. The pitching was horrible. And so that's where it also makes it really hard to fully assess, because I want to put a lot of value into the way that Alderman finished the year in AAA, and you should. Like there's definitely value to it. I don't want to take anything away from it, but the stuff was a little bit softer, I think, than what he was seeing even at points in AA, and he took advantage of that. I just wonder how that swing path is going to play against better stuff. That said, he clearly made an improvement to get the ball in the air more, and that resulted in 10 homers in his final 30 games. It did result in a little bit more whiff, but I think that's what you want to see there. And there's at least, I think, the fallback of this just short platoon destroyer that would be really fun. But I think there's still hope that, he can be an everyday corner outfield power bat.
A counterpoint to everything negative, Nancy, that you just brought to the table. First AAA game, hit an 114-mile-an-hour homer off his new teammate, Zach Brixey. Chicks dig the long ball, man. Kemp Alderman, I mean, it could be nasty stuff. I like the Reese Hines shout because when he got up, it was prodigious. And then you found the hole, and Reese Hines is trying to figure out how to clog up that hole, Billy Mays style. It's Kemp Alderman's job when he does get inevitably, exposed, whether it's at the AAA level or the major league level, to shore up that deficiency in his game and improve from there. And at that point, he becomes that mashing everyday corner outfielder.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what's crazy is Alderman, he's so he has even more power than Reese Hines, which is hilarious. And Hines, I think, is a little bit more whiff. Alderman improved a lot of the things you wanted to see. EV90 of 111 is comical.
That's crazy.
That puts him in the Judge. It's like the elite power bats in Major League Baseball. You say, he may not duplicate that at the big league level, obviously, but also the EVs are always a little bit more juiced at the big league level too with those balls. So it's crazy power. He's still just 23 years old for the entirety of the season. So he's got even more time to iron things out. It's a little stiff, but I think if he can just kind of find, he's going to be more of the one swing for one spot guy, right? Like we talk about Stanton. I think that's a little harsh, but it's going to be like one type of swing, generally speaking. So that's why I think if the approach can come along to where his pitch recognition is really good, or at least above average, it's going to be a monster, even if it's 40 grade hit tool. So that's what I think the Marlins are hoping on, but it's the best raw power in the minor leagues. And you're going to get excited about that no matter what, especially when the whiff isn't egregious.
And even now, opposing pitchers, you best not miss.
Yeah, he's gonna crush mistakes, and you can make a living off of crushing mistakes. Starlyn Caba is a guy that I think is going to be back in the Marlins top, or the top 100 list overall when we get going in I think the midseason update by next year. I'm going to talk about Caba in a moment here. One more quick break. So Caba had a really encouraging AFL. And I think, I don't think it's confirmation bias to look at that and say, okay, he's back on track. He dealt with several ailments and he had never really been banged up in the past. And I think it really made the season a lost one for him. And when I look at the handedness, like the splits offensively, I mean, we talk about the quality of contact as a left-handed hitter versus a right-handed hitter. As a lefty, he had an EV90 of like EV90 of 98 miles per hour. As a righty, an EV90 of 102.5. It's not the biggest sample in the world, but I really feel like he was struggling to get into that base from the left side. He just didn't really fully look like himself. And historically, that never really been an issue, left side versus right side. Just seemed way more comfortable getting his best swing off from the right side. And in dealing with a couple of the different injuries, I definitely think that he was just not feeling like himself, kind of like the Dillon Head conversation. And then he's finally 100% healthy, goes out to the AFL. And I mean, not only did he put up good numbers, the quality of contact was fantastic for his standards. It was 18 games, but hard hit rate of 40%. That's 53 batted balls and an EV90 of 103, 828 OPS. He even snuck 2 homers out. Caba does not need to be very good offensively to be a very good major leaguer. And as a potential 70 grade shortstop with great wheels, the barrier for offense, like the offensive barrier to be a regular, is so low for him that, I mean, we'll take just about anything. And it's kind of similar to the Cannarella conversation. If Caba's a 700 OPS, he's going to be a really good player for a long time. Nick Allen was an everyday shortstop last year. I think Caba's got some more offensive ability than Nick Allen, who, by the way, Caba's not even 20 yet. He'll turn 20 in 2 days. So happy early birthday to Starlyn.
Yeah, everybody wish him a happy early birthday. Also, I'm not blind. I know you're not blind either. It was so funny watching Marlins Twitter erupt with the 2 fall league homers that Caba hit, because that was just injecting positivity into their veins. And I'm totally with you. That guy is so easy to root for. When you watch him even take infield or field a ground ball during a game, you're going to fall in love. This guy is as smooth a defender as you will find in the minor leagues. That's been the case since he was in Philly as an 18-year-old. Every single time you watch him take ground balls, it's like you're watching somebody paint. It's amazing.
That's what the elite defenders do. It's different. It's different.
Honestly, who is, when you think about defense as an art, who do you think of? Because my mind immediately goes to Andrelton
Simmons, Arenado for me. I always had the third base bias growing up playing there, so I just would watch during class, like highlights and video all the time. Arenado with the footwork and the way that he would play balls and the different angles that he would throw for it from in different situations. To me, it was art. Like it was art there. Sure. And then, like, more so than a Machado, because Machado is just like, here are my raw tools. I field everything. Like, check this out. Whereas it was more of that art form with Simmons and Arenado, and I see that with a young Caba as well, because he spends more time. And I know that they've been closing the gap on that. He spends his pregame work defensively it's meticulous.
Yeah. It's amazing. I think about Andrelton Simmons. I also think about Brandon Crawford, like a young Brandon Crawford in San Francisco. It was amazing. And the fact that we're even comping Caba to that right now shows you that there are very few guys that invoke that feeling of defense as a work of art. And Caba is one of those guys. He's played 168 minor league games. And this isn't even counting the fall league where he was good. In 168 minor league games with a disappointing 51 game stretch with low A Jupiter this year, hitting 242 with a 674 OPS, pretty on par with what you're talking about. This guy's walked 129 times and punched out 99 times. And oh, by the way, he's swiped 80 bags in 168 games. That's a full major league season effectively.
Yeah.
80 bags, fewer than 100 punch outs, and over 100 walks. Come on.
Yeah. The swing decisions are great. And that's something that I really think is going to be a huge asset for him. Great bat to ball, great swing decisions. If it's gap to gap, I think he's going to put it all together enough to be the player that, you want him to be, and that the Marlins acquired.
Yeah.
Totally different looking shortstop would be Alva Arquette. Arquette, the Marlins first round pick in 2025, 7th overall, top, college bat in the draft. There's a question of whether he may move over to third, but the Marlins will tell you Arquette's a better athlete than he gets credit for. And I can understand that too. He can move a little bit. He's got the defensive tools to earn runway to stick it short. If he moves over to third, though, he'll be a good third baseman. It's all about the bat, though. I think you're looking at a guy that could be average hit plus power at, with pretty much 50s across the board elsewhere, right? Like he's either going to be an average defender at shortstop or above average at third. The plate discipline should be average or better. But when you get average hit plus power on the left side of the infield, it's going to be a good player for a long time. And Arquette has a chance to be just that.
Yeah. How concerned are you with the slow start to his professional career? It was not a great go in Beloit.
So I thought he was a guy that was going to need to tone things down anyways. Like we talked about Arquette, like he kind of hits like baseball always came easy to him, where the bat's waggling, he just picks his foot up, puts it down and swings. Like there's not a ton of I think focus on, like coiling into the backside or, mechanical components or, limiting variables. And like, I just don't think he's faced much adversity in his baseball life at all, ever. And then in hearing you guys talk to him on the radio, he's just so like, go with the flow. It reminds me of Karson Williams a little bit. I'm just like, this guy's just never had to actually, I think like, oh, do I need to change this so that I can cover this pitch more? He's just covered everything his whole life. So the very simple thing for me is just the hands are so noisy. And I think it's just a little bit more disruptive when you're, working against really loud stuff. I think the Marlins even knew that going in. They're like, okay, well, we'll probably have to adjust some things. But yeah, smart organizations now, like they let guys hit a little bit of adversity before presenting them with changes. And we always talk about that with Brenton Del Chiaro, the Brewers. So I'm not too worried about it. I just think it was like the first time where it's like, okay, wait, I can't just pick up the bat, go up there and just swing and make it happen. Like, I think there's going to be a little bit of focus of, okay, wait, how can I slow the game down now a little bit for myself? Because for the first time in my life, it's a little fast.
Got you.
And that's why I think once he quiets his hands down a little bit, and I even think the leg kick, like it's a little bit noisy, maybe just finding a way to get into the backside without it just being this big move, I think he'll be fine. But even with the so-so numbers, it wasn't like he got blown up. The quality of contact was still decent. I think he's going to have a nice, season next year.
Man, the St. Louis school, if I'm not mistaken, yes, it gave us Jordan Yamamoto. Yes, it gave us Brandon Lee. Did it give us Tua Tagovailoa as well?
Did it? I don't know. That's funny.
I think it might have. I'll confirm momentarily.
I'll pull up Robby Snelling in the meantime. We just talked about him on in a previous episode, I believe. But yes, Robby Snelling has a high floor. Robby Snelling's ceiling is being slept on now at this point because I think everyone's seeing pitch ability lefty. He is more than that. He is now a guy that I think can show middle rotation stuff. And I think maybe even a little bit more than that. I don't think it's out of the question for Robby Snelling in his age 22 season to flash, high end number 3 upside. The fastball quality, it was a complete leap from averaging 92 to averaging 94.5. And in the final 10 starts of the year, averaging 95. He gained 1.5 inches of vert when most of the time pitchers lose vert going to that AAA ball. So if you're still throwing with the AA ball, he might have gained like 2+ inches of vert. And he dominated with the fastball. I always keep talking about this. It's a pitchability lefty that now is dominating with his fastball. Opponents hit 164 against it. There's this like slight crossfire. Hitters have to respect the secondary so much that I think that fastball gets on you even quicker, and he just seems to hide the ball well. That paired with the fact that the curveball is all the way back and was a fantastic pitch for him, and then the changeup played up because the fastball was so good, and then he added the slider as well as, another offering to just kind of keep hitters off, just out of the sequence of 3 pitches, and he's got the plus command. He's, I think, almost a guarantee to be a back end of the rotation starter, but now I see middle rotation potential here, and I see him pushing more closely to that because he's also got room for more. He's an elite athlete. He's a great competitor, and after the leap he just made this year, why can't he make another leap? Like, there could easily be more in there for the 22-year-old who's 6'3".
Yep. I've got a Snelling question in a moment, but I did just do some recon on the St. Louis school in Honolulu, Hawaii. A couple other baseball players that I got to shout out here. I mentioned Jordan Yamamoto and Brandon League. Caleb Lomavita, who was a first-round pick of Washington a couple years ago out of Berkeley, also went there. And then Benny Agbayani is probably the best baseball player that has come out of there. But in terms of football, Tua Tagovailoa, Marcus Mariota, Jeremiah Masoli for the college football sickos out there, the former Oregon quarterback when LaMichael James was there, and DeAnthony Thomas. And then also Dominic Raiola, who's the dad of Dylan Raiola.
Oh, yeah.
Olin Kreutz as well. So that place is a athletics powerhouse in Honolulu. But Snelling question, the velocity uptick was the main story for him in 2025. It was the main story in spring training, and then it emerged as a story again at the end of the year where he was sustaining 96 to 97 even. Where do you feel like he could settle? Like, what do you think the bedrock velo is for him? Could it be 96?
I think so. I mean, especially when you were seeing him in short spurts, like when he came out of the bullpen in that in the championship, and he's like touching 99 and average 98 there. I'm like, there's more in there. I think he could easily be sitting 95, 96 this next season. And I know like the focus is like, how much more can I get in there? But the thing is with his characteristics now, if he's sitting 95, like he's pretty golden. That's a plus heater. So I think there's a little bit more, but I think just the fact that we already can look at that uptick and say he's holding that, and we're already saying, is there more on top of that? Is crazy. And just is a testament to him and the mechanical improvements that he made that he told us about, a few months ago on the show. You combine the command with that fastball quality, and that's why I think the ceiling just continues to get, I think overlooked. The final 15 appearances, opponents had a 474 OPS against his fastball.
Wow.
He should break camp. He shouldn't make another AAA start. I really, really believe, like, I don't even know what the Marlins rotation situation would have to be for Snelling to be squeezed out. I really think he should not make another AAA start. That's just my opinion. Number 2, Joe Mack. He should probably play a little bit more in AAA because I think the focus is going to be hitting those breaking balls. But Mack is just about close to being ready as well. One of the best defensive catchers in the minor leagues. The hit tool is going to be a question. It's probably below average. But Mack, we talked about, is one of the biggest risers as well. So if you want to hear a little bit more about Mack, check out the biggest risers episode that we put out the other week. But big reason why Mack continued to rise is, after having some significant challenges, I think, against spin, though he was productive because he hammers velocity. He made some subtle adjustments and was really productive, the rest of the way. The final 30 games, he had an 863 OPS, much better numbers against spin. Again, the defense continued to look fantastic. And he just crushing balls in the air to the pull side, 8 homers in those final 30 games. Even if it's a 30 hit tool, which I think it'll be a little bit better than, the plate discipline's decent, the power is above average, and the defense is fantastic. And we talked about it in the biggest risers. Like, it seems like he could very easily follow like a Dylan Dingler type of path. But even if he's a little shy of that, that's a 3-win catcher.
We talked about just how high the WAR accumulation can be from, what he does defensively. And we also talked about like the level of communication that he has with the other side of the battery and just with the staff. Like, there were pitchers that, I talked to that were in Pensacola and were only caught by Mack twice before he got up to Jacksonville that, were fired up about how their relationship blossomed with Joe Mack. There were guys in the big leagues that, lauded Joe Mack and the work that he did with them in spring training. So it seems like this guy is a plug and play leader in a certain sense, which is really darn cool to have.
Yeah. I mean, and when you have that defensive value, we talk about the offensive barrier to be irregular, it's low. And then when you are going to at least crush fastballs and mistakes, it's going to carve out, enough production there. Against fastballs last year, 303 with a 984 OPS. So the focus is just hitting those breaking balls better. And I think the one thing that is going to help him a lot is he has that big barrel tip in his load, and like he's literally pointing it at second base, or like at the second baseman right as he's about to start his swing. And it just creates such a long path to get back on plane, and also makes it hard to stay on plane because you're trying to snap that barrel back around. It can cause you to kind of pull off with the front side to try to get it out. I think that's why we've seen him pull off with some of that secondary stuff. Once he can shore that up a little bit, and it seems like he bought in on that down the stretch, if that part of his game comes along a little bit further and he's a 40 grade hit tool guy, or even a little bit more than that, now we're talking about a guy that has the upside to be, one of the better young catchers in the game.
You brought up Dylan Dingler. I think when we were talking about Joe Mack on the Risers episode, there were two other guys that I ID'd. Different way to get to a 7 or a 90 WRC plus like Bo Naylor did.
Yeah.
But Naylor is
That's
a
like
guy that walked a lot, but was a good defender. Bo Naylor over the last 2 years has been a 3-win catcher, so it's 1.5 a year. The other one that jumps out, Austin Wells. This guy has 6.5 WAR accumulated since the start of 2024, and he's got a 100 WRC plus in that time. So literally league average hitter, and he still is a 6.5 win player over the last 2 years, which feels like what Mack could be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why the Marlins are so excited, and something that they have not had at that position in a long time.
Yeah.
Number one, Thomas White, and it was a bit of a question for a little bit of time. I'm like, okay, well, now that I think the Snelling ceiling is higher, like what could he close in on White here? White's going to need to throw more strikes, right? His 14% walk rate, but this stuff is so outrageous. We talked about like the Blake Snell comp. Like that's how good the stuff is. If the command can progress, and this is the classic, he just started throwing more strikes. This is a guy that it wouldn't surprise me all of a sudden if he just starts throwing more strikes, because he's a good athlete on the mound. He's 6'5", 225-pound lefty. He was 20 years old last year. And we talk about the baby draft thing, right? Still just kind of learning how to, maneuver and repeat his mechanics. But we're talking about a guy that could have a better than plus fastball, a plus curveball, a plus changeup, and above average slider. If that command is 45 grade, he's a monster. So it's just a matter of getting there. The fact that White still got to AAA last year at the end of the season with some of the command challenges, and I thought, struck out 10. He walked 6 in that outing, but struck out 10. Like there's this, I think, floor that he creates for himself, even though it's a volatile outlook, where it's like he's not gonna give up any hits. He's just gonna strike everybody else out. So it's really just not beating himself, and he's got time to figure out how to do that, right? And that's really the last variable, because there's really no questions about the stuff anymore. It's outrageous. Some of the best stuff in the minor leagues.
Happy birthday, Blake Snell, 33 years old today. I just want to look at what he did in the minor leagues. Blake Snell obviously was the best pitcher in minor league baseball and the top pitching prospect in baseball after the 2015 season. So going into 2016, that was the year he was 134 innings, punched out 11 hitters per 9, had a 1.4 ERA. But the 2 years before that, 2013 is a 20-year-old in high A, 99 innings, he walked 73 guys, had a 4.27 ERA. The year after that, in 2014, 24 starts, 116 innings, a 3.2 ERA. He walked 4.5 per 9. So he went from 6.5 per 9 to 4.5 per 9 to 3.5 per 9. And the year that he was 3.5 per 9, he had a 1.4 ERA and was a top 15 prospect in baseball. Is this not the progression, folks?
It might be the progression, and then he put out a scatter plot, and it doesn't look that different, man. I only like the comps when I like the comps, and I like this one. It's volatile in that respect, but like he could not make that final step. He could get stuck in the middle step there, and he's still going to be. It's going to be the Dylan Cease conversation we always talk about, which is still, look at that stuff gets you paid.
$210 million.
Stuff, ERA don't get you paid. Stuff gets you paid because again, teams know that sometimes a 31-year-old starts throwing strikes. It's just we're seeing guys now come over from that couldn't throw strikes stateside in the big leagues, go to the KBO, NPB, come back, and now they're throwing strikes. So it just Tatsuya Imai. Yeah. He cut his walk rate in half from his career average this past year. it's just it's so hard to predict. That's why teams just bet on stuff. And if you're betting on stuff, there's maybe nobody better in the minor leagues right now to bet on than Thomas White. So I think the Marlins are very excited about him. I think you take a little bit more time with him. I think he could spend a lot of the year in AAA, but if he's throwing strikes though, then you're not going to waste too many bullets down there too. So what the good news is, if he's not, you got time. But if he is, all of a sudden you may have a rocket ship that you can't justify keeping down there. So last thing on Thomas White real quick. I love to do the numbers by pitch type that, what the output was against him.
Yeah.
Against fastballs, opponents hit 180. Against that sweeping curveball, opponents hit 120. Against his changeup, opponents hit 190. And against his slider, opponents hit 250.
Wow.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Good luck. That'll do it for this episode. We may change the way we're doing these team top prospect lists. We were always going to go long on the Marlins, so we were excited about that. But we have plenty of team top prospect lists coming out. Moving forward, we're going to do a little bit of a dive into the Japanese prospects as well in the coming days, and very much looking forward to all of that. Jack, any final thoughts on the Marlins system?
I'd like to dedicate this episode to Kevin Burrell.
Yes, the man. The man, he's breaking stuff out there. He's doing a great job. And I think he'll be listening to this. So shout out Kevin Burrell, best on the Marlins beat. Appreciate him. And we will be back next week. Maybe one more time this week, but probably next week. Look forward to talking prospects with you then.